We have a student whose goal, his sole goal for this year was to break 80. Hadn't done it all the way until the second half of December when we introduced this to our website membership. He took the test, started implementing some of the things. His last round of the year shot 77. Achieved his goal, had never broken 80 in his life. Hey everybody, Milo here, and I've got a special guest on. I've got Kiel Alderink from Mental Golf Type here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about implementing the Mental Golf Type system into our golf games and how it can help us become better players and better coaches. So Kiel, absolutely, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'll give you the shortest version I can, but I mean, I was a player that learned really quick that I didn't want to play for a living, but I really enjoyed the coaching side of it. I even coached like basketball through college and things like that. I coached AU teams, middle school teams. I was helping like my high school team and even the guys on my college team. You know, I'd have a video camera out there helping. So I always enjoyed the coaching side of golf, and I was fortunate to get a good opportunity to move to Chicago and kind of accelerate my career at a big academy with Todd Stones out there. And, you know, I just kind of learned technique. I geeked out on it. I studied everything I could about it, and learned a lot of amazing things. I mean, from like Mike Adams, bioswing dynamics. And I mean, I was studying everything I could, but I realized there was kind of this missing piece to it. So I started to get into a lot of sports psychology things and everything I could get my hands on there. And I saw this common theme with what I was reading, and it started to click with me because it really spoke to me. So I started implementing some things that I was reading, learning from videos and talking to some sports psychologists. And so I just kind of went down that wormhole. I thought that was right for everybody. So I started to implement these things that spoke to me, but it didn't necessarily work for a lot of people. And, you know, kind of again, a long story short is Mike Bender was in town in Chicago doing a teaching summit. And I was fortunate to know Mike. I reached out and said, hey, you want to have dinner when you're in town? If you're not doing anything, I'd be happy to treat you, take you out so you're just not sitting in your hotel room. And I was telling him kind of the same journey I was on and what I was learning. And that's when John Weir was working as Academy at the time. And he said, well, you got to meet John and see what he's doing because it's going to answer a lot of these questions. So I think I emailed John, like literally as we're sitting at dinner, I was like, I you know, where would you be willing to talk? And fortunately, you know, he was, and John and I obviously formed a great relationship and eventually a partnership in this, and him being the creator. But he started to explain these things to me that were kind of like a slap in the face, basically saying, you know, what you're saying to people is only working for a very small percentage of the population because your personality type is a very small percent of the population.
Okay.
And that was a pretty, yeah.
First off, having a technically sound golf swing doesn't make you good.
It's hard to believe, but not necessarily. I mean, it helps. I'm never going to tell anybody having a great swing is not going to help you. But I mean, you know, something I allude to a lot is like, if you look, you go down, I've been fortunate to be on like players on the Corn Ferry Tour and stuff. And you look down the range, man, everything's a cookie cutter swing, right?
Oh yeah.
That's what like
I'm getting at. I've hung out enough on many tours and different places. Some of the best golf swings I've ever seen are not very good players. And so the golf swing does not make the player. And some of these guys have these homemade nasty golf swings, and they just are destroying the fields. So it's like, what is it that they have that the other guys don't? And that's kind of what we're going to get at here. It's pretty cool. So
yeah,
you started teaching the mental side of things, but you were kind of going down the cookie cutter there as well, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, it was the things that really spoke to me. Like, I don't do well with like lines on the ball. When I get off, I get really, you know, kind of away from the target, and I get really into, you know, is my swing in the right spot? I mean, I remember some of my worst competitive rounds. I was sitting there thinking, like, is my weight in the right spot? Is my takeaway in the right spot? And I'm trying to manipulate the swing through the entire thing, and whether it looked right or not, it made me struggle and made me feel super uncomfortable out there. And I remember vividly this one round, I went to the range immediately after because I was like, I got to fix this. And I hit it amazing. And I was so frustrated. I was like, what the hell just happened? And I think that's the question that everybody wants answered is why can I hit it well on the range, And then they go on the golf course and it's something totally different. It's a different feel. It's a different, everything we got going on our body's different. So that was the journey I was looking to solve. And, and John kind of, really cracked the code, which is why I just bugged the crap out of him until he started training me on some of this stuff.
Tell us about the code and kind of how that changes the direction you go with coaching people on mental golf.
Sure. So there's, John did a good job of obviously giving the whole overview, but I mean, there's 4 facets that really make up a player's personality. There's our energy source and how we make, basically how we organize thoughts. There's our perception of focus, so how we see targets, how we focus our thoughts over the ball, how we make decisions, and how we structure our time. So all together, that makes 16 types. Really, I mean, if we're just going from the beginning, the first 2 that I really am interested in with players is, are they extroverts or introverts? Because that's going to really affect how I communicate with them. And then I want to know basically sensor and intuitive, because that formulates a lot of, how I might structure their drills, how I'm going to communicate certain things about the swing to them. I'll give you kind of a quick example on that. So I had this girl recently who's a good player, but on the TrackMan, she goes on TrackMan a lot. And her path is like always in to out like 6 or 7, which is funny to me because she's like, I like to hit a draw, but she's frustrated her path is in to out. And I'm just like, well, that just doesn't make any sense. So she's kind of been trained. Needs to be 0 on this thing because it's a technical person telling her this, but she also wants to hit a draw. So I'm trying to get her to understand, first of all, that's I mean, that doesn't connect, right?
Yeah.
But so she was showing me all this stuff she's trying to do, positions, pressure in the ground, and all really good stuff. I mean, in years ago, some of the exact same stuff I would have said. And so, her dad was the same thing. He's like, yeah, she just can't get out of that in-out path as hard as she tries. She cannot swing left. So I grabbed an impact bag, kind of put the zipper right down the middle, and I just said, can you take this bag and make it spin like that and hit it? So she hit it and did it immediately. I did it like 2 or 3 times, and I put the ball there, kind of same thing, little range ball line in the middle. I said, can you do that same thing with that ball? Can you make it spin like that? And immediately she went to like -4 with 4 open face. So her dad looked at me like, how is that possible? I just gave it to her in a way her mind could process that. That's all. It's the same exact thing. Everything was right. Everything she was trying to do was exactly that. I just gave it to her in a picture that she could actually comprehend, like throw a ball low, move my hand down here, you react to that and throw it low type thing versus, the actual steps to get there. Now, if I take like an ISTJ and do that same thing, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, well, give me the directions to do that. So, when it's just like understanding those things, but again, like, so that particular girl, like I could relate to that because that's everything. That's the way I'm wired. I mean, I played a bunch of different sports. When I pitched, I threw at 3 different arm angles. Like I can make balls spin. I can do things with ping pong paddles, like all that stuff resonated. So again, even taking like an ISTJ years ago, I would have said the same thing. And then they would have just struggled to figure that out. I've been like, well, why can't you just do that? Simplify it. When they would have been looking for, well, give me the steps to do that. Where does the club need to be? Where does my hands need to be? Type thing. And that's the stuff that always like really frustrated me. So I kind of had to relearn to go like, who am I talking to? And being able to speak that language because I'm not a fan of TrackMan, like not me personally. Like I use it a lot, but I hate being on it myself because I get caught up into some things that always ends up frustrating me. So being able to go down that road with some players and do that is something I've kind of had to learn to kind of redo, I guess.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from because I'm similar to you. I don't really like to see my numbers on TrackMan, other than when I do look at them. All I look at is like launch angle, ball speed, and I don't really. I'm kind of intuitive as far as how to make the ball curve, and so I don't need to see those numbers. I just like to make it curve.
Yeah, I mean that's always how I kind of worked on my swing for the most part. If I was, pushing it, hooking it type thing, I would just go out, try to start it left and fade it. I knew my swing was in a good spot. But again, I mean that's essentially how I was kind of now going down in the beginning stage of my coaching is that's what I would do for everybody. Where again, some sensors and like STs who really need that factual kind of information, they just don't think like that. They're not wired like that. They like a little more of the positional stuff, the P1, the P2 type movements. Yeah.
and they like to know exactly where the club needs to be at every interval of the golf swing. And so you've got
that's where they get comfort, is they know things are in place. So I know my positions are right. They get a lot of calm for that. Where I'm like, if I know the ball's starting left, I'm good. Let's go play. So it's just we're all calmed by different things. We're all stressed by different things.
Yeah. Cool. So knowing that, how can we implement these ideas to be better coaches and to be better students?
Yeah, so we'll start with the student side, and like first things first, with like an extroverted player, I can't stress enough is talk everything out. The power behind that is, I mean, absolutely spooky. I can give you two real quick examples where I caddied. Like I try to caddy as much as I can. I have a busy schedule, but I like to get out and help players and caddy with them, talk shots out and things like that. So I caddied for one of my Corn Ferry guys. He was in a Monday qualifier out here in Knoxville. And I just told him he's the same as me, which is interesting. I mean, he's been with me since he's been in 8th grade. And I mean, when we started kind of learning these things from John, and I took him through an early assessment. I mean, he's an ENFP, which makes total sense that he stood the test of time, kept growing because he did what I did that worked for me. So he fit my coaching model back then, which is, why we've been together so long and have such a good relationship. But anyways, so I just told him, I said, look, our only goal out there is we're going to talk every single shot out. I just want you to tell me where it's going to start, where it's going to go. And again, I had him on TrackMan the day before, and he was hitting it awful. He started getting, where's my tack angle? Where's my path need to be? And just hitting it so bad. And I finally just went out and just threw a couple balls on the range. Said, just go hit it left and fade it. And then he was like back. So he's got to be careful because he's got a lot of friends, close friends that he's always have a TrackMan behind him. So he falls into that trap of wanting to get into that. But sorry, I'm getting off track. So anyway, so we go out and I'm caddying for him. And I just said, it's our only goal. We're going to talk every single shot. I want you to physically tell me where you're going to start it and where it's going to go. We did it all day long. He had 9 birdies and 1 bogey. And the only bogey was, he missed a short-sided pin, like very close, got a bad hop into a bare bunker and just couldn't get up and down. But it was one of the most flawless things ever. He just kept telling me, I'm going to start it here. It's going to fade in. And it's just all day long. Perfect. Similar to actually that same girl I was just alluding to the other day. She was 13 years old at the time. She's 14 now, but played in the U.S. Junior Girls qualifier against the same thing, ENFP. And did the same thing. Just let's talk every single shot out. We're just going to talk. I'm going to keep you smiling. We're not going to be negative about anything today. We're going to find the positive every single shot. Her dad literally was like, if she breaks 77, it's a great day. And she shot 72 with a triple, 3 birdies, and then actually qualified in a playoff 2 under through the last 4, doing that same thing.
Awesome.
So and it's not like a brag or anything. It's just like, that's how powerful even that side of that thing is like experts really talking things out. I have a story about an introverted player that had the exact opposite effect. When his coach was trying to make him talk everything out, he played terrible. So it's like introverts just kind of need to know how they need to formulate the things. Extroverts need to know how they need to do their things. Intuitive and sensor, that player side, target side is really, really important to be aware of. So like an intuitive player is finding ways to basically, I would say the simplest thing I could just give as a broad universe for an intuitive is work on your swing by hitting a shot that helps it. So for example, if you're just hitting the ball too high, like you're scooping, adding loft at the bottom, just go work on hitting punch shots. Learn to keep the ball low. It sounds so simple, but that's essentially how they figured out. And if they can't, I'll put something in their way. I'll just put like a pool noodle on some sticks or something, give them a bar, figure out how to hit it under that. And they kind of pick that up a lot quicker than, bow the wrist type thing. And again, all that stuff is it's right. And it's really great information. It's just, how do they process that information? Where a sensor is going to need probably a little more of that. Like here's how you get that wrist in that position. Here's how you get the face delofted type thing. Maybe have a club face in their hand and show them, whatever. You have obviously millions of great things you do with players, but so it's just that difference of like, how are you working on the swing? And then how do you think about it in a way or focus on a way when you play that's very simple, right? So like working on pressure in the ground might be a great thing, but that might be a hard thought to produce on the golf course.
Yeah.
Versus just keep the club face low, or breathe out and hit it. Having some sort of focus like that, where it's like you feel really comfortable. If I do this, this is the result. And when I've asked players at every single level that question, like, how do you focus over the ball to know what the result's going to be? Not many people have that answer. And when they do get that answer, that's when a lot of the consistency comes, because now they can work at it on the golf or on the range. They can, implement it on the course, and then they can actually measure that. Like, how often did I actually stick to my thought over the ball? So like an intuitive with like a lot, like the Jordan, that guy I was talking about in the qualifier, I built a field goal out of PVC, and we just hit it through the field goal. So when we go out there, like, his focus is just, hey, can you kick the field goal with a little fade or something? And we measure that now. How often did you stage your field goal, or how often did you slip and get into like questioning your swing? So when we have those things, it becomes really, really powerful, because now we start to link, those thoughts are starting to shift.
That's really interesting, because I can see where certain students don't like the same processes that I use. Like, I don't even really, I've had multiple people ask me, what are you looking at when you hit the ball? And I don't know. I don't even look at the ball. The ball's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, which dimple? And I'm like, I've never looked at the dimples. I don't know.
Right.
I just
right.
the ball. And I'm basically seeing like the field goal. I see I'm going to kick a field goal and it's going to curve that way. But other players don't like that. They want to know, like, they're more thinking what's happening behind the ball. Mm-hmm. And I'm more thinking about what's happening out in front of me.
Well, like Xander Schauffele as an example, we talk about a lot. I have some videos of his. And I mean, he's over the ball for a good 10 seconds and looks at the target for maybe a split second. And he's rehearsing his takeaway. He's getting his feet settled. He's checking his intermediate spot. Tiger Woods the same way. If you watch Tiger, like, he takes quick glances to the target, but he's more looking at the side of his eye at an intermediate spot. And, I don't remember as much like when he was in the Butch era, but I remember with Hank Haney, he was always just rehearsing that top of the swing and then that feeling of kind of going left. So he would always just have that feel of that kind of cut swing before he would hit it, and then he'd get in there, you get set, and then, you would execute. Tiger actually talks about in this video from years ago that I've played a bunch. He talks about how he can't visualize. He says, when I try to visualize, I see it going everywhere. I mean, that's common language of a sensors. When they get away from their clear task of the ball's going to do this is how I do it. They start seeing too many possibilities, and it freaks them out. They don't know what's coming.
That's why he's good when he's in the trees and it tells him you have to hit this one.
Crazy, right? I mean, he had what tournament was that? He missed every single fairway on the front nine and shot like 3 under or something. I mean, he was in the trees
a couple years ago.
I mean, he just does crazy things with irons. But that's to him, though. When he has to be precise, he's really good. He's awful with the driver historically because he's got bigger fairways.
Yep.
Bigger targets.
That totally makes sense. So that's some really cool information that we've been able to cover there. I think we'll go a little more in depth for my website members here coming up. But if any of you are looking to get in touch with these guys from Mental Golf Type, Kyle, how can they get in touch with you guys? How can they schedule?
Yeah, so just going onto our website, mentalgolftype.com. I mean, the first step is just to take the assessment and, really go through that verification process, figure out, how you really are wired. And the interesting thing is about 93.4% of people who take that assessment, the golf one versus life one, usually test different, which shows us that they're trying to do things on the golf course a lot of times that are counter to how they're naturally wired. So learning to bridge that gap is really, really important. I mean, we had a guy who reached out, or we actually did our own little podcast with, and he said on it that he, just from going through the online training and learning this stuff, he went from shooting 90s to like low 70s. And it's crazy. Just from making a few shifts in how he was thinking about, basically he was trying to do the precise thing, and he's wired more like you and I, Milo, where it's like, I just need to free up a little bit. So it's wild. And, obviously that's a little promotion, but I mean, it really is wild. That's why I'm doing this and I'm all in with John, is because of what I've seen in this. And I mean, I really believe this is going to go down as one of the greatest discoveries in the game. I have to throw out one promotion.
I was going to say, I have to throw out one promotion for you guys as well. We have a student whose sole goal for this year was to break 80. Hadn't done it all the way until the second half of December when we introduced this to our website membership. He took the test, started implementing some of the things. His last round of the year shot 77. Achieved his goal, had never broken 80 in his life. So I can attest that if you understand how your thoughts work and you learn how to implement those strategies, you can play better. So pretty cool.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, it's been good having you on. Let's wrap this section up and we'll get into it for the members.
Awesome. Thanks, Milo.